The Ugly Duckling.
Once upon a time, there was a duck, and this duck was very happy because she had lots of little eggs, and she was soon going to have lots of little ducklings, and they were going to be her children, and she would have a lovely family to love. And one day, one by one, the eggs started to hatch, and out, one by one, came all the little ducklings. And they were beautiful ducklings, and she loved them very much. But there was one egg that didn't hatch. It was the biggest egg. And they all waited. "Quack," said one of the ducklings. "Mummy, why won't the big egg hatch?" "We have to be patient. We have to wait," said Mother Duck, "because your brother has to take his time, but he will come, don't worry." And soon enough, the big egg started to hatch, and out came a beak, and a wing, and another wing, and then out came the duck. But this wasn't like the other ducklings. It had a long neck, and it looked very strange. And Mother Duck looked at the duckling, and the duckling looked at the mother, and he said, "Quack, are you my mummy?" "Yes," said Mother Duck. And she thought the duck looked a bit strange. But she didn't care, because it was her duck, and it was her son, and her baby, and she loved it very, very much, just like the other ones. So she said, "Would you like to come to the pond and meet your brothers and sisters?" "Oh, yes," said the little duckling. And she took him by the wing, and they went to the pond. But when they got to the pond, all of the brothers and sisters turned round and went, "Quack! Oh, what an ugly duckling!" And the mother duckling said, Now, children, you must be nice, because this is your brother, and we love him very much, even if he does look a little bit strange." And the duckling said, Yes, mother, you're right. We must love the duckling. He is our brother. Come and play with us." So the ugly duckling went, and he played in the water. But none of the other ducks in the pond, well, they weren't the ugly duckling's brother or sister, so they didn't have to be nice, and they weren't. "Ah!" they said, "What an ugly duckling! Oh, get it away! Oh, no!" And the ugly duckling turned to his mother and said, "Mommy, why are they calling me ugly?" "Don't listen to them," said the mother duck. "Don't listen to them. You're my son, and I love you, and your brothers love you, and your sisters love you, so just ignore them." And he played, but he was a little bit sad. But the other ducks, they kept going. "You're an ugly duckling," they said, "and your mother's ugly, and your brothers are ugly, and your sisters are ugly. What an ugly family!" The ugly duckling was so sad, he started to cry. And he thought, "I don't want the other ducks to call my mother ugly, and my brother's ugly, and my sister's ugly. It's all my fault. I have to go away." So he waited until the other ducks were asleep, and he quietly walked away into the forest. As the little duckling went into the forest, he got very hungry and very thirsty. He needed something to drink. And before long, he saw a farm. And in the farm, he saw some chickens and a cat. And the chickens were very ugly too, so he thought, maybe this is where I belong. So he walked up to the chickens and he said, "Quack! Hello, chickens! I'm a duckling. Do you have any food or drink? I'm very hungry and very thirsty." "Quack! Quack! Quack!" said the chickens. "Whoa! What an ugly duckling! No! Go away! Go away!" And then a cat jumped out and he saw the duckling and he said, "Whoa! Well, meow. You're very ugly, but I'm hungry too, and I'll eat anything, even if it's ugly." And he jumped, but the ugly duckling was faster, and he ran and ran and ran as fast as he could, and he escaped from the cat. So by now, the ugly duckling was very hungry, and very thirsty, and very sad, and very tired. And he fell asleep behind a bush, which is like a small tree. When he woke the next morning, he looked around the bush and there was a pond. And on the pond, he saw the most beautiful birds he had ever seen in his life. And he thought, oh, they're beautiful. I want to speak to them, but I'm not only a duckling, I'm an ugly duckling. I can't speak to them. And so he hid behind the bush and he waited. And days passed, and weeks passed, and months passed, and a whole year passed. And then he couldn't wait any longer because by now he was very, very thirsty. So he looked up past the bush and there were no birds. So he went to the edge of the water and he looked in, but there was another beautiful bird in the water looking up at him. He said, "I'm sorry, but what had happened to his voice? His voice had changed. He said, "I'm sorry, I know this is your pond, but I'm very thirsty. Could I have something to drink, please?" But the bird in the water didn't speak to him. "Can you hear me? I'm very thirsty. Is it okay if I drink?" And then he felt a tap on his shoulder. And he looked up. And it was the most beautiful bird he had ever seen. "Oh!" And the bird said, "Hello." And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Were you talking to the bird in the water?" And she said, "No, I'm talking to you." He said, "But why are you talking to me? I'm just an ugly duckling." And she said, "No, you're not. You're beautiful. You're a swan, like me." "You mean I'm not an ugly duckling?" She said, "No, of course not. You're the most beautiful swan I've ever seen in my life." And with that, the ugly duckling, who was in fact a beautiful swan, kissed the swan, and they got married and lived happily ever after. So remember, never ever judge somebody by how they look, because everybody has a beautiful swan inside waiting to get out.